said the spike in inflation is lasting longer than expected. What?
It's a shocker.
Yeah, it's a shocker. And the $3.5 trillion, that's going to help bring down inflation. That's what they're actually saying.
Mm-hmm.
Can we please stop with this? I mean, if you want the $3.5 trillion, then just have the balls to say what's in the bill and that, it's going to hurt inflation. It will hurt inflation, but we think it's important.
This show has been occasionally critical of AOC, but at least she's admitting she wants the money.
Right.
She's just going to say we're spending $6 trillion. She wants $6 trillion, but we're going to spend $3.5 trillion.
So economic principles are not driving the economy right now and what decisions are being made. So what is? The same thing with let's look at the border. What is, because there's no evidence. In fact, there's a mountain of evidence that this is a humanitarian crisis. There's no evidence that all of the things that they reversed from Donald Trump are working. The opposite is true. So what is driving what is the motivation? It's like Marsha Blackburn told us today. If the generals did tell the president that this would happen and he dismissed all of the advice of the Pentagon, then why was the decision made? We just need to know. What was your thinking, Mr. President? You have the right to make that decision, but it turned out badly. So what was the motivation? Tonight, I'm going to spotlight the humanitarian disaster that is of Biden's own creation. They created the disaster in Afghanistan. They've created the economic disaster that is still to come. And they created the disaster at the southern border. Tonight, Biden's border crisis, the threat to America. Tonight on Blaze TV at 9 p.m. Right after another Stu Does America.
You get more like excited
right
about
after. Am I contractually bound to say that?
And if you say it with excitement, then people know to be excited to tune in at 8 p.m. Eastern.
Right after a very special Stu episode. Stu Does America. Stu finds out he's got a child from another woman on a very special episode of Stu Does America. Apparently, he's done more than just America, if you know what I mean. Followed by Glenn Beck, 9 p.m. Eastern.
We really should do more very special episodes.
We
I
should.
feel like that. That's something that
when there
went
was
away.
a very special Punky Brewster, we watched.
You did. You cared
watched,
what
you
happened
cared.
to Punky.
Yeah, you did.
You know?
A very special Punky Brewster.
Like a very special episode of Small Wonder. When, like, the robot child, one of the robot
There was only
child's-
one episode of that. There was only one episode.
No, it's not true. It was a great show.
No, there was one episode.
No, that's
Really?
not true. Small Wonder?
Yeah.
You're talking about one of the classic television shows of the past
Hi, Mom
century.
and Dad. I am a robot.
That's
Oh, my
right.
gosh, it was horrible.
I forgot about that. She did a
horrible.
bad robot voice.
Yes, she did.
Mom and Dad, I love you. And then the people next door would come over and like, wait a minute, why is she talking like that? I am just a normal kid. And then they would laugh.
Oh, my gosh.
What
that
a
was bad.
great show. Where are the shows like that today? Now all you have is...
I don't know, but not on Blaze TV.
No.
And that's a reason to join us. Get your subscription now at blazetv.com/Glenn. Use the promo code Glenn and save.
And, of course, Stu Does America, which is right after a brand new Small Wonder.
We should do that. We should do that.
I love that. That's a classic show. By the way, we should point out, you may be watching more Small Wonder on YouTube because your vaccine misinformation is not going to be available to you anymore. This is breaking as we speak. YouTube is going to pull all vaccine, quote-unquote, misinformation from its platform. Now, they've been doing this for a while, obviously. They've been stopping people saying things they didn't agree with on, coronavirus vaccines and such. They're expanding that to all vaccines. So you can now not say anything bad about, I guess, the measles vaccine or whatever. And they are banning a bunch of high-profile anti-vax types like RFK Jr. and such. So that's it's funny because like we just came through this period where they banned all this content on the lab leak theory. And people thought, well, wow, that guy got burned on that one. What will they do next? They'll do this.
They don't learn.
No.
Mom and Dad don't learn anything. They're going to destroy the planet.
This is the Glenn Beck Program.
Important hour of the broadcast as well.
Yeah, the other two, not much important stuff.
Yeah.
But that one, the next one's going to be really important.
Yeah. Let me tell you about the covenant. This is a series for TV that is based on the Old Testament. In fact, it's not based. It is this foundation, and it will be true to the Old Testament. It's written, but it is true. The federal government is weaponizing the IRS. And they are also making our big banks even bigger. I've been telling you for a while, get out of the big banks and go to a community bank, one that is supported and controlled locally, not something that has their ties into Citi or Chase or any of these things. Well, the president said he's going to go after those big tax dodgers, those rich people, and all he's asking for is a little information from their banks. He's asking for a little information, on those rich people. If they move $600, he wants the IRS to be notified. So in other words, you deposit $600 or more, and only rich people do this, $600 or more, or you withdraw $600 or more, the IRS has to be notified on where that money is going. It should be bone-chilling to most Americans. So what are you going to do about it, and why should you stand up against this? We're going to talk to the independent community of bankers of America. These are the people who are on the front lines, and they are going to be destroyed by any of these kinds of things. The federal government is trying to put them out of business, in my view. We begin that conversation in 60 seconds. The Independent Community Bankers of America, and I wanted to talk to him because there's a lot of independent banks that are now saying, you got to stand with us, please. Stand with your local banks and stop the IRS and the federal government from putting this new onerous restriction on these banks. Welcome. How are you, sir?
Great. Thanks for having me on.
So, Paul, tell me what the government is doing and why it's important to stand up against it.
Well, a lot of people really have a hard time keeping up with what's going on here inside the Beltway in Washington, D.C., and we're sounding the alarm bells on this crazy, onerous proposal from the Biden administration, the Treasury, and now Congress is implementing this to have banks, every bank in America and credit union, report on people's financial transactions. They want to know the inflows and outflows of your savings accounts, checking accounts, loans, any money you're moving into and out of accounts would be tabulated and sent into the IRS, any amount of $600 or more. And, they may adjust that amount, but they're measuring flows. This is a massive invasion of privacy that we've never seen before. Financial privacy will go right out the window with this new IRS sleuthing and snooping on everyone's financial accounts.
I hope. Go ahead.
What they're basically saying is that we assume every American is a tax cheat, and we're going to watch all your financial transactions. And this applies to small businesses as well.
So as I look at this, I hope this isn't what America is going to say. But in the past, America has always said about things like this, well, I'm not doing anything wrong. Why should I care?
Well, that's a problem because this doesn't matter what your tax liability, what your situation is. This is really going against your Fourth Amendment rights to privacy, and the way the government and IRS is getting around that, they can't demand this information directly from you. It's against the Fourth Amendment, but they can get it from third parties like banks. We've seen this with going to phone companies to get your phone records, which they can't get from you directly. So this has got to be stopped. The leadership in Congress is trying to sneak this in, the $3.5 trillion big budget package.
Is it in the reconciliation bill?
Absolutely.
Oh,
and we've got to alert Americans and customers of banks that, this new invasion of privacy is about to take hold. And, Glenn, the IRS doesn't have a very good track record of keeping people's personal information private as well. There's been plenty of IRS leaks. There's been political profiling of people based on their tax returns. You can't trust the IRS with this massive amount of data on every single American. And plus you have the risk of a data breach, the IRS being hacked and all your personal transaction information is there. It's a crazy proposal. It's got to be stopped in its tracks. And, we're afraid that, people aren't watching what's in this $3.5 trillion budget deal, and these are the kind of things that will come back to haunt us.
So this would allow the IRS to have information that if you wrote a $1,000 or $800 or $600 check to the GOP or the DNC, the IRS would then have that information, and that you could become on a list if you are donating to people and you're writing a check for it.
Well, as we've seen, the IRS has a very poor track record of keeping people's information private. There was just a big leak with ProPublica on wealthy Americans' tax returns was turned over to the press. So the IRS cannot be trusted. And really, Americans won't tolerate this profiling of individuals based on their financial transactions. The IRS and the government have no business snooping on people's financial transactions. This is the worst type of profiling. Stop and frisk people. It's going to lead to more audits. It's going to lead to the IRS being tripped up with a lot of false positives. I mean, people have various bank accounts and move money around for all kinds of reasons. Some people are taking care of their elderly parents and use their account, and it's just going to be a dragnet of collecting people's private financial information and turning it over to the government.
And then you have to answer for it. If they see anything they don't understand, then you have to, not only do you have to answer for all the receipts and everything else, you're now going to have to answer for possibly spending that they don't understand or moving things from different accounts.
Well, absolutely. And the IRS is extremely powerful. They could freeze your bank account. They could garnish your bank account. They could demand that the bank send in even more detailed information on your financial transactions. It's amazing already what the banks have to provide to the IRS. Any transaction now over $10,000 has to be reported to the IRS in a currency transaction report. Any suspicious activities, the bank has to legally report to the government, to the IRS. So we don't need this blanket dragnet of sleuthing on every American on their financial transactions. And another thing that is troubling is that a lot of people that recently came from dictatorship type governments don't trust government or the financial system already. You're going to push more people out of the banking system that don't trust government.
So let me ask you one more question. The big banks are for this, and I think the big banks now are kind of in a public-private partnership with the Fed and the United States government. But the big banks are for this. Doesn't this cripple small local banks because of just the reporting on all of this will be just so onerous on you guys, wouldn't it?
Well, absolutely. It's going to be a very burdensome, costly, to implement the computer systems, the monitoring, the personnel you need to keep track of all this. It's preposterous. But, the federal government doesn't care. The Treasury doesn't care. The administration doesn't care. They just want to get after people's money. They want to get after, stopping and frisking people and looking at what they're doing with their financial accounts, profiling them. This is the worst type of policy I've seen in a long time here in Washington. And people have to weigh in. People have to speak up and get to their congressmen and senators and say, we're not going to tolerate this new IRS reporting.
And you can do that via banklocally.org/privacy. You can send a member of Congress your message, banklocally.org/privacy. Paul, I've been saying for a while that people should get out of these big banks. I myself do business with a bank, and it's owned locally. It keeps all of its loans locally. It doesn't sell them off. It is truly stand on the community's own. You know what I mean? If people want to get out of a bank, they ask me all the time, what do I look for? And I just say local as you can possibly get. Can you give the audience some tips on what to look for in a local bank that keeps them out of this mess?
Well, you hit on the key points, is that the local bank only does well if the local community does well. The money that's deposited in a local bank is turned around and used to lend out to the local community. So it's all part of a symbiotic relationship to keep that small community healthy. And you can go to banklocally.com and look up a local bank and find one. We have 5,000 community banks located around the country. We're in rural areas and urban areas, and it's important to have that personal relationship with your local bank. They're there to help you. We did $1 trillion worth of PPP lending, the Paycheck Protection Program, to help keep businesses afloat. So our banks do over half of all the small business lending in the country. So if you need a local bank, go to banklocally.com and you'll find a local bank you could join up with.
Paul, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Paul Mursky, he's Independent Community Bankers of America. It is vital that you speak out against this $600 rule that is being put in. It will weaponize the IRS. It will come back to haunt you. I don't care if you're not doing anything wrong or not. It will come back to haunt each and every one of us. It's a violation of the Fourth Amendment. You have to stand up against it. You can go to banklocally.org/privacy and send a message to your member of Congress and the Senate that this must not be in any bill. It's got to be stopped. It will also really hurt your local bank, and that's where you should have your money. I urge you to put your money into a local bank. Get it out of these banks that are all worried about ESG and their global equity and their partnership with the governments around the world. Get into a local bank. Local is the answer to protect yourself. Back in just a second. Welcome to the Glenn Beck program. We're really glad that you are here. Gas prices are still on the rise. They're continuing to move upwards in September. I believe before this administration is done, you could see, not in California, you could see $5-6 a gallon gasoline prices in the next 4 years, maybe higher. In California, you'll probably see $10 a gallon. Coal shortages are happening now, which will affect the price of coal, which will of course increase the price of your electricity for your new eco-friendly smart car that is all electric. The cost of natural gas is up 180%. And Powell says the inflation spike lasted longer than we expected and might get worse. Who would have thunk it? All of these things were foreseeable. All of these things are caused by the current administration. All of them. and be prepared for a world that looks a lot different than the one you're living in right now, in a bad way.
And we're talking about all of these things getting worse, too, which is important to note. I mean, the inflation estimates don't even take into account the $4.7 trillion they're trying to pass right now in extra spending.
No, because it's going to make it better. And it's zero cost.
No, it's not.
Zero cost.
That's not how cost works. They're like, well, what we're doing is we're raising taxes and we're going to take money from people and spend it on things, so therefore that doesn't cost anything. That is legitimately their argument right now. Because they say, and they're not doing this, we should be clear, they're not actually raising enough tax revenue to pay for these bills.
Because they'll have to go to everyone to raise enough for this.
So they're not actually doing what they're saying they're doing. But even if they did, if you were to say, like, I'm going to my credit card, and I gave them my credit card, and I bought a brand new flat screen, and it didn't cost anything. That is the childish argument they are making. You still have to pay it.
I tried it with my wife. It doesn't work.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. I mean, luckily, once it's in your house and it's already on the wall, there's not much you can do about it.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I thought that's what cost meant. I saw Joe Biden's tweet.
Yeah.
I thought that's what cost meant.
None of our wives would buy into this.
No.
Why do so many men buy into this when the government is doing it? Why are so many women who will argue with your husband? That's not the way it works. When we try to get away with this, you're all over us. How is it this works for the federal government?
It really is incredible
It is.
that they're saying this doesn't cost anything. Of course it costs
And
something.
by the way, that's not even the biggest thing, quite honestly. To me, the biggest thing is the inflation.
Yeah, and that's what
when you put that much money into the system, that money is going to slosh around and cause prices to go up. If you're trying to, look, here in Texas, I'm trying to put a driveway down, in my house that will be finished in 2 weeks.
Just 2 weeks, yeah.
And so I'm buying recycled asphalt, all right? And
Because you're green?
yeah, trying to get the asphalt to my house, I can't because the state is redoing all of the freeways. So I can get the asphalt technically and buy it, but I can't get it to my house because there's not enough dump trucks.
And we should point out that that's before the bipartisan infrastructure plan has even passed.
Yes. So when the government is spending all kinds of money, the price goes up and the things you want become more and more scarce, which causes the price to go up again.
And remember, they're going to play with these numbers in a big way. For example, in this $3.5 trillion plan, there is a plan, part of it is for universal pre-K. Now, when they have to appease Joe Manchin and say, oh, it's only a $2 trillion package, what they're going to do is say, well, we'll just pass universal pre-K for 3 years, not 10.
And you think the Republicans?
Yeah. After 3 years, once everyone gets their free universal pre-K, they're just going to reauthorize it, and Republicans aren't going to fight back against it, and it will be not $3.5 trillion, but infinity trillion dollars.
Just know your electricity price this summer for heating is going up. If you have natural gas, it's already up 180%. Check your gas gauge. They're gouging you. This thing to do with big government. Car Shield. Wednesday night special on Blaze TV. Biden's border crisis, the threat to America. The open border policies are a threat to all Americans and all American cities, and you need to be aware of how this is going to affect you. That doesn't just come from me. That came from Barack Obama yesterday, that this has to stop. Will it? I don't know, because I don't know what the goals of this administration are. I can't figure out the metrics they're using to measure success anymore. Tulsi Gabbard is joining us. She is the first female combat veteran to ever run for president and the first female combat veteran ever elected to Congress. And we welcome her to the Glenn Beck program. Hi, Tulsi. How are you?
Aloha, Glenn. I'm good. It's good to talk to you always.
Good to talk to you. I've been wanting to talk to you about so many things lately.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah, let's just start with the border. Your thoughts on this?
Look, Glenn, we cannot have a secure country unless we have a secure border. And the Biden and Harris administration's open door policy at the border is a disaster. It needs to end, and it is a direct cause for the humanitarian and national security crisis that we've been seeing play out. There's a direct correlation between the changes in policy that this administration made through executive order very shortly after taking office and the results that we are seeing. I've heard from some folks saying, well, some people got deported or some people got sent back home, but you've got to pay attention to the fact that through the campaign, the very presidential campaign, there was a very clear message sent. Hey, yeah, we're going to have an open door policy. We've seen how, at a practical level, I think the Department of Homeland Security Secretary said yesterday or the day before that of all of those tens of thousands of people who were under the bridge in Del Rio, now we're seeing it's anywhere between 10 and 20,000 people who are now in the United States with, some vague message of a notice to appear and not knowing where they are or where they've gone and without any kind of vetting. And this is the hypocrisy of this policy is, for people who want to fly into our country, right, you've got to have a visa. There are no fly lists that their names are checked against. And, by the way, you also have to get either a COVID vaccine or a COVID test if you're coming from another country. But for those who want to bypass all of those requirements, the message that is sent and is loudly received around the world is, hey, just go south of the border. Come right across.
Tulsi, I don't know how this administration is judging things anymore. Everything that is supposedly good for America seems bad for us. The good guys are the bad guys. I mean, we're now saying that the Taliban are our partners, which is absolutely obscene. The Border Patrol has been accused of whipping people, and when it comes out that that's not what was happening, the president still went on and said there's going to be a high price that's not going to stand. Those people will pay. My gosh, what is happening?
This goes to the core problem here, Glenn, of leadership. And I've known Joe Biden for a long time. I consider him a friend. And the reality, though, is what he's doing here is wrong. And on a whole host of issues, we're seeing under this Biden-Harris administration that our country is rapidly moving in the wrong direction, whether you're talking about this absolute tragic failure of a execution of the withdrawal from Afghanistan. You and I have spoken before. I think the withdrawal is the right thing to do, should have happened a long time ago.
Yes.
But the way that they have carried this out, it's a betrayal to our men and women who serve there. It's a betrayal to those who worked with them. It's been an abject failure. You look at what's happening at the border, abject failure. You look at our economy. You look at inflation in all of these different areas. Civil liberties, privacy, these now travel lists with the vaccine mandates. I mean, each of these you can look at and see, sadly, how our constitutional rights are being violated and the Constitution is not being upheld, and how we're not living up to the principles and values that make this country as great as it is.
Tulsi, I have to tell you, the reason why I like you is we may disagree on things, and there might be things that you think I believe that are crazy and vice versa. But we respect each other, that we know that each of us are trying to do the right thing for America. And I hope you know that if Donald Trump were doing all of these things, I'd be on the air saying the guy's a dictator. We're moving against the Constitution. We're destroying ourselves economically and in every other way. Are there honest people that you know that voted for Joe Biden who are now starting to see this is everything both sides have warned against?
Of course, and I think there are many more Americans who don't care about left versus right, Democrat versus Republican, but people who care about our country and who are deeply concerned about the direction that we are headed, and who can't make sense of the policies that we're seeing being put forward. And what this really comes down to is sadly people in positions of power in our country who are putting their own political ambition or selfish interest ahead of the interest of our country and the American people. And that's what's so heartbreaking, is seeing their willingness to sacrifice the well-being of our country for their own interest rather than the other way around, sacrificing their own interest for the interest of the country.
I was talking to a senator today, and she said, in talking to the three generals yesterday, if they're telling the truth, then why did Biden make this decision? It's his right to make the decision in Afghanistan. But what's the motive here? And if just looking at this is not incompetence. It can't be, because if it was incompetence, once in a while something would fall in America's favor or in freedom's favor. This is just the most comprehensive destructive policies that I've ever witnessed. Can you come up with a reason that's not nefarious that all these things are happening?
It goes to leadership, and it goes to what are our leaders, the Biden-Harris administration, and leaders across our national leaders is what's your objective? And that's how I approach these challenges and these problems that we're facing with kind of a military mindset. Is, hey, what is our objective? What are we trying to accomplish? And then you can figure out what's the best way to accomplish and to achieve that objective.
But I think that they have a different objective than America does.
Well, and that's the problem. That's the problem here. When you see, one thing we haven't mentioned, for example, is when you see how the policies coming from this administration are further dividing our country through the use of race and identity politics. Yes. Everything is becoming racialized. You can't see anything through the lens of what Dr. King talked about, judging people on the content of their character rather than the color of their skin, looking at issues for what they actually are. And instead you have, if anyone dares to criticize the policies or the actions or decisions of Kamala Harris, for example, they're accused of being racist or sexist. And so many of these things we can't even have real dialogue around for fear of many people are afraid of being canceled or being called these names or being given these attributes and saying, well, this is who you are and you don't actually care. And this is part of the problem. If
you were in Congress today as a Democrat, which you were, I'm not sure if you still are. You are an independent, I think. But if you,
I'm still a Democrat.
Still a Democrat. Okay. So if you are
speaking up and trying to bring about these changes,
what would your advice be to the people who are in Congress now looking at this $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill?
Take the provisions that are in that bill, break them up, put them forward, each standing on their own, and allow the American people and their representatives to debate each of these proposals on their merits and pass them accordingly. There are some good provisions in that bill that I would agree with, and there are a whole lot that I don't think are worth spending American taxpayer dollars on. But the American taxpayer doesn't really get a choice when all they're given is it's all or nothing. And obviously it's a political, tactical decision for them to do this, to be able to force down the throats of the American people this massive $3.5 trillion spending bill that's got everything under the sun in it, so they don't get a say. People can vote for or against it, saying, well, hey, I like this thing or I didn't like that thing. And just the cost and consequence of taking this approach is too great.
Is it going to pass?
I don't know, Glenn. I don't see how they're able to not only find some agreement between Democrats and Republicans in the Senate on this, what to speak of the differences that are playing out between Democrats themselves right now, especially in the House. So we'll see.
Tulsi Gabbard, thank you. It's always a pleasure to have you on. I wish we could have you on more. You are full of common sense, and I wish we could get back to a world, and we have to, get back to a world where we can disagree, but we don't have to be disagreeable. We can still walk away friends. Tulsi, thank you so much.
Thank you, Glenn. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye. All right, so the mental image of people pushing wheelbarrows around full of basically useless cash is kind of, I just... This COVID-19 vaccine is just puzzling to me. First of all, let's just start at the hospitals. The hospitals are firing people left and right. I mean, 200 nurses just gone from one hospital in New York. They're firing people who have been on the front lines. These are the people we were supposed to love and worship.
Do you have your pans out, your pots and pans?
Yeah.
You clang them together?
And you're supposed to love these first responders. Well, they did. They did their job. Now that the pandemic is over, now because they don't agree with the vaccine for some reason or another, and I bet a lot of them are like, I had it, I'm fine. Mm-hmm. Somehow or another, they're going to lose their job, and nobody seems to care. Nobody seems to care that the people who we've just said for the last 2 years were the heroes that were doing all the hero work, we don't care about them anymore. They're just gone.
Such a bizarre turn of events. It's all, it's like how the left is with police officers. They're like, oh, the Capitol Police, these heroes that protected us. Look at this one man running up these stairs and leading people in the opposite direction. Thank God we have them. Oh, wait, what happened in Kenosha? Oh, did the guy who was in the middle of assaulting a woman get shot as he was trying to run over somebody? Oh, well, let's put them in prison for the rest of their lives, those cops. I mean, it's just so inconsistent. It's the same thing here. I mean, look, what did they expect? These hospitals have 90+% take up on the vaccine.
90. Can you tell me how long did it take for the not smallpox, was it smallpox, polio? How long did it take to get the polio vaccine, which, by the way, was crippling children?
Think of how vaccine hesitant this country must have been back in the day when 6 years after the polio vaccine came out, we were at 54% vaccinated.
54.
We are currently at 77% of adults vaccinated.
We would have been
country.
At 80 if he wouldn't have made the mandate.
Probably at 80 and maybe even higher than that if it wasn't for them pulling Johnson & Johnson off the market for a couple of weeks for no reason.
So because they spooked people, we're below 80%. 80%.
But still, that's a remarkable number. I mean, I don't know what you expect. This is the United States of America.
98 to 99%.
You probably get North Korea. If Kim Jong-un wants a vaccine mandate, yes, he could probably get it higher. You live in a country which has a constitution that emphasizes freedom. You're going to have people who are going to disagree with these things. Let the product speak for itself.
And it kills me that they're saying the 10% in the hospitals, they just don't agree with science.
Right,
Wait a minute.
They're the doctors.
They're the
you were
doctors
just
and
saying,
the nurses.
They were the front. And you know what? There are probably 10% of doctors and 10% of nurses who disagree with large parts of what is acceptable to the mainstream of science. First of all, that's probably healthy for a society.
It is healthy.
I mean, there's certain basics that, yes, you should, the leeches thing should be 0% at this point. I understand that. There's going to be people who disagree, and there's certain things, but there's natural doctors who don't like medication, who disagree with tons of mainstream stuff. Is that completely unhealthy for a society to have a percentage who's constantly changing or challenging the narrative?
Right now,
I don't think that's an
I'm telling you right now, 10%, I'll bet you 5% of that are not against the vaccine. They're for the natural antibodies that they've already had.
I think you're totally right. I mean, we're seeing this in the NBA with the player in the Orlando Magic.
Antibodies.
I already had it.
Why are you denying science? I have the antibodies. And we're just going to... And by the way, they say that will not affect hospital care at all. Because we can get nurses dime a dozen.
This is the Glenn Beck
Wait, I
program.
thought the...